So now that we have talked about the main synths actually of this track, let's talk about what I call the secondary synths, which in my mind are just as important and sometimes even more important than the main theme, because they really help drive the track. They help create tension. They help carry the whole track as it goes and progresses, and you're creating that emotion. And yeah, I mean, they have all different shapes and forms, and they can be all different things. Sometimes they're arpeggiated, sometimes they're pads, sometimes they're both, like in this case. So we have three basic sounds here that I'm talking about, and I'll go over each of them separately. First, we have the pad I want to show you, which is this sound. Which sounds more almost like a guitar or something like that. It's a pretty cool sound. I've used it a few times. I love it. Then there's the forever upping lead, how I call it. Which is a Pigments synth. And then there's the Lost in Space synth, this one. So we'll talk about each of those. First, let's start with the one that actually comes in first in the track, or at least the first that gets really heard, which is the forever upping lead. So a few things about this one is the notes themselves. You can see they're slightly off. You see the first note is trucking actually the right place, and the second one I actually just put I changed logic here to 32. See, and then I have a smaller grid, and I just positioned this 32 off the main note, just to kind of get this almost staccato effect. Not staccato, I'm not sure if that's correct. Please correct me. I'm not really a trained musician in theory, but these kind of little double notes, and this is also helped by the arpeggiator here, just that I will show you, but it wasn't really there, and then I use the arpeggiator from Logic to just really narrow those down and make those two notes really short. When it comes to the sound itself and what was done, this is how it sounds, the sound. Nothing really super amazing. It's a Pigments sound there. It sounds like this when you struck the notes there. The arpeggiator from Logic on a 16th, and then it sounds like this. So you see that's already a lot closer and also an octave lower of what it was before. So first things, I added some dynamic EQing. See a lot of that volume and a lot of the amplitude in the mids, and what I would call the energy of that sound has already been taken out just by that. After that, some sidechaining, of course. Then I had, oops, I'm sorry, this was still on. Then I have the EQ in the middle. In this case, is doing a little bit of dynamic EQing here, and also is going to be doing, in this case, the automation. You can see how these guys are changing and opening as the track is evolving, and then closing again to give more or less tension as the track goes on. And then I'm going to leave this guy off, or at least let me change into a place where he's letting a little bit more of the sound through. After that, I use the Spl Transient Designer from UAD to increase the sustain and the attack a little bit and make it a little bit more sharp, because of course I had lost a little bit of the edge of it because of all the EQing. So I added this. It's very mild, but it just helps thicken up the sound a little bit. Same thing for the LA2A, even though you can see peak reduction is on 70, which is a lot. This is done because this is a very resonant sound in itself. You can see by the peaks. I mean, this is just a delay going still. And yeah, I generally will use compressors for controlling how much louder the synth will get when I'm basically opening the cutoff, or in this case my EQ, because it can very easily get overwhelming, and then it just becomes so loud. So to kind of control the difference to when it's EQ'd and when it's not EQ'd, I use a plain Teletronics, because I love it. It's a really, I mean, a no-brainer really, and it works. So in this case I added this guy. Let me turn it off first. So you can see a little bit. I'm not sure how fast this is reacting. I feel my computer is starting to lag a little bit. But it's basically just, compressing a little bit more and more as we bring more and more of that signal into the track, just to keep everything kind of in check. And again, an EQ in the last inserts, just to be absolutely sure that everything is where it should be. After that, I'm just sending it to a small reverb, which is the lexicon here, and on my bus 5. And basically, the sound in itself, you can see here, let me just play the track without it being soloed. This is almost one of the things that really carries the whole track. The sound carries the whole track on its back, basically. So you can really see that it doesn't really, it plays a huge role, but it's not super in your face. It's more there just for that kind of never-ending upper feeling, let's say. And yeah, pretty simple idea. You can see that the sound itself isn't really something special. It's the way it's been used and the notes themselves and the processing that really makes it into something special.